Persistent.
Bruce, can you tell us about your involvement down here?
Unshakable.
I would love for your attorney to speak to us. Can I have his name?
10 News investigator Noah Pransky.
Is there any concern for what happens if there's a wreck? What would you tell the people who are just sick and tired of the gas price problems? Are fans safe coming to the stadium?
Like a dog with a bone. The 10 News investigators digging deeper, getting answers.
How are you going to tackle the issue of funding these deficits in a short amount of time? You're running for a public office and you don't want to talk about any of this? Do you think that's a legitimate concern again?
I think it's not really in the front burner by any stretch.
Why are you running from us? There's so many people who say you've been running from them. You won't answer their questions. You won't pick up the phone. What's your answer? And why are we running? Why do you refuse to answer any of these questions about ripping people off? What kind of future revenue would you expect if a new stadium was built here?
That's part of what we'd have to look at when as we're looking at the stadium.
The team hasn't done any sort of planning or prognosticating. On your website, you said you were special operations military. Is that true?
I was a military police officer in the Army. That's correct.
Were you a special operations military police officer?
My website doesn't say that.
It did for 5 years, Michael.
Have a nice day.
What a tangled web we weave. Florida Polytechnic University, created through the pressure of J.D. Alexander and the signature of Governor Scott, has no campus, no students, and no faculty, but it does have a lot of problems, the biggest of which seems to be there's no administration to deal with any of it. The dressing room doors at Macy's are designed with these privacy blinds that when you hold them up, you're only allowed to see one way in. The problem is at Macy's, when they're installed backward, looking into the dressing room, you can see just about everything. Rays owner Stuart Sternberg told commissioners on the Tampa side of the Bay that he was committed to this region and he would never demand a new stadium, but that Major League Baseball won't hesitate to yank the franchise if they can't find a way to improve attendance. The report blames the owner of the Deepwater Horizon rig for last year's Gulf oil spill, citing flaws in their emergency training, emergency equipment, and a poor safety culture. When you compare the schools in the 6 major conferences, USF's $35 million athletics budget is one of the smallest. However, when it comes to the portion of that budget funded by student fees, USF ranks #1.
Think about how much you entrust to a mover. Access to your home, a checklist of everything you own, and often control of those items for days at a time. You also trust them, in case something goes wrong, to make things right.
I'm not insured on anything.
And that's not a problem for someone moving thousands of dollars of goods?
Correct. That's understandable.
Following a tip from a viewer, the 10 News investigators discovered an online directory littered with unlicensed movers. Hire one who's not registered with the state, and you've got no protections. But the website, movinghelp.com, is hardly a fly-by-night operation. It's run by one of the most trusted names in moving, UHaul.
The site promises to connect consumers with safe, affordable, and reliable labor to help with the self-move. But in Florida, even these workers need to have licenses. Our investigation led us to loading up a U-Haul of our own. On movinghelp.com, we booked one of the trusted movers, but the man we ended up getting was Stefan Mikkel. He did not have a license, but he did have a history of drug and battery arrests.
Florida regulates movers because consumers need to know who's handling their belongings. If something breaks, you've got insurance. If something goes missing, there's an agency to help you out. But unlicensed movers offer none of those protections.
After meeting our undercover producer, Stefan went to load our truck. At one point, he even tried to buckle a microwave into the front seat instead of packing it in the back. We didn't let him finish.
Stefan, Noah Pransky with the 10 News investigators. Are you guys licensed to be moving anybody right now?
No, not really.
He said he wasn't a moving company, just labor. But Florida State Statute 507 clearly defines a mover as someone who, for compensation, engages in the loading or unloading of household goods.
That's what you're doing right here, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have a license?
No.
So what happens if there's damage or there's a problem? Who's someone
I
that
would
goes?
have to pay for it.
But what's the consumer's protection?
There was none, but despite U-Haul's promises that all moving helpers go through a verification process and a certified training class to be active on our website, Stefan said he merely had to watch a couple of video clips.
I went online and put in information, and you know what I'm saying? I started working.
We called U-Haul, who collects 15% from each referral, and after acknowledging that they don't verify licenses, they issued a statement that said, MovingHelp.com believes that customer feedback is the best way to protect future customers.
The problem with that is U-Haul is guaranteeing at least one bad experience before a bad mover gets bad feedback. And you can't even get the names of the movers you're choosing from until you make your several $100 payment. U-Haul isn't checking if they have licenses, and you can't either.
Movers with licenses say U-Haul is all too eager to collect profits while avoiding responsibility.
I think it's misleading to consumers because they feel like they're getting a mover who's been pre-screened or gone through a verification process.
We took the issue to state regulators who said they too are concerned.
I think we need to do is maybe to try to get the names of those movers and get them licensed, or if they refuse to follow the rules, put them out of business.
A spokesman for the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services says a slew of disclaimers may protect U-Haul legally, but ethically it's a different story. In protecting itself, the corporation is exposing the consumer, and this may be one expense not worth cutting corners on. In Lakeland, Noah Pransky, 10 News. It's Christmas at a KB home, where the scaffolding is hung from the chimney with care, and the halls are decked with warnings that scare. Where every night leads to a holy night, and there's rocking around the Christmas tree, thanks to this blight.
They start at 8 a.m. every morning. I hear banging all day long, constant, sometimes drilling, sawing.
It's just not a happy place to be.
Homeowners like Armando Oyolo Delgado and Amanda Dillon may have dreams of a Merry Christmas, but the only wrapped gifts the Willowbrook townhomes have received from KB Home have been its buildings.
Fire home's back.
We've covered the plight of the homeowners, as well as other KB Home customers around Tampa Bay who have had to deal with construction failures like leaky homes and collapsing balconies. And even though Willowbrook is just a few years old, it's looking more and more like the complex will be dealing with these disruptions for years.
It's honestly embarrassing. It makes you not want to have people over.
Contractors found wood so rotted, entire walls had to be ripped out and discarded.
The more you go through, the more rot you find.
All the residents wanted for Christmas was compensation or relocation.
That's that dude's living room right there.
But they say KB executives are content playing Scrooge. While the Willowbrook residents try to make the best of their Christmas, KB's regional president, George Glantz, is spending his Christmas like this, in a Windermere mansion just a few 9-irons away from the likes of Shaquille O'Neal and Tiger Woods. But despite a week's worth of interview requests, this was as close as we got to Glantz.
Hey George, this is Noah Pransky with 10 News in Tampa. How are you?
Even on the phone, he said he was too busy to talk until after the holidays.
They're sitting around the fireplace. I'm sitting around a moldy wall.
So while Willowbrook homeowners continue to try and make the best of their winter wonderland, up on the rooftop, workers pause, because it could be a long time before these KB homes once again actually feel like a home. In Bradenton, Noah Pransky, 10 News. If a dog breeder won't come to her door, won't pick up her cell,
she refused to turn any of my phone calls,
and won't answer our questions,
why are you running from us? There's so many people who say you've been running from them.
There's a good chance you're dealing with one sick puppy.
I don't know what the hell's going on, but it's supposed to be a reputable business.
Ricky and Rita Brooks of Deltona thought they had found the perfect dog on BlueEyedBeautyAussies.com. Baxter, an Australian shepherd from the other side of the state who had one brown eye and one baby blue.
It was such a beautiful little puppy. He was laid down with me like this because he was little.
But just as quickly as they fell in love, Baxter fell sick. A vet told the Brooks that Baxter's sluggish behavior was due to parasites, as well as parvo, a preventable virus growing inside him.
The veterinarian says if he'd have been vaccinated, he would not have been sick like this.
Despite health guarantees from the Sarasota breeder who sold the dog online, the Brooks say they never got any answers about why Baxter arrived sick. And after blowing their vacation savings, $2,500, on 2 weeks worth of non-stop vet services, they were told Baxter wasn't going to make it.
When we got there, he was gasping for air, and I told him how much Mom and Daddy loved him, and he looked at us at one time and he couldn't breathe.
The Brooks filed complaints with the state against Blue Eyed Beauty's owners Sherry Rouse and her daughter. And as other victims came forward, the two women closed down their website. But they didn't get out of the breeding game. They opened a new website under a different name, Dos Lunas Aussies.
Complaints indicate that Rouse was shipping sick pets all over the country, and the internet's made it very easy for breeders just like her to pop up everywhere. But the kicker in all of this is that shipping a sick pet across state lines sight unseen is largely legal because the Animal Welfare Act was written more than 40 years ago, long before the internet.
The loophole allows people to breed and to send these animals out. The harm is you don't know what you're getting. You don't know what were the parents like, how were they housed.
Humane societies across the country support a proposed change to federal law that would crack down on the shipping of sick pets. They say it's necessary because right now, backyard breeders and puppy mills aren't inspected.
They don't care. It's all about the money.
We wanted to ask Sherry Rouse about her long list of upset customers, but after giving us the same silent treatment she gave them,
What do you say to all the people who said they got sick or dying pets?
She finally agreed to talk, except she didn't keep her word on that either.
Why are you running from us? There's so many people who say you've been running from them. You won't answer their questions. You won't pick up the phone. What's your answer? And why are we running? Why do you refuse to answer any of these questions about ripping people off?
She even tried to hit our photographer with a car door. And while the feds don't have any laws in the books to go after Rouse, the state of Florida has one. Because she didn't provide the proper paperwork when she sold her dogs, she was arrested by Sarasota County deputies after we started asking questions. And even though Rouse is still selling dogs, she now faces 5 misdemeanor charges and possible fines in the thousands. A number, though, according to her customers, is insignificant compared to the pain she caused them.
I wish that she could pay us for what she owes us, but we know that she'll never.
I'd just like to see justice done to her.
Ricky and Rita say their love for dogs clouded their judgment, but after their experience with Baxter, they learned to spot the red flags and happened, by chance, to come across a healthy Aussie Shepherd with all the proper paperwork. His name?
Chance, catch it!
Chance.
Catch it!
In Deltona, Noah Pransky, 10 News.
Throughout the morning, we'll take a look at some of the year's biggest events. And first, the news that came out on a Sunday evening this May that Osama bin Laden was dead. A team of Navy SEALs bagged the world's most notorious terrorist by bombarding his Pakistani compound. It happened in the early hours of May 2nd, and the whole operation, years in the making, lasted just 38 minutes. On top of the good news that the SEALs had taken out the leader of al-Qaeda, they also seized the single largest cache of terrorist materials ever. And another face we won't soon forget, Casey Anthony's 2011 produced the not guilty verdict heard around the world as the Orlando mother was cleared in the death of her 2-year-old daughter, Kaylee. The jury for that trial came from right here in Tampa Bay, Pinellas County, and it took them 11 hours to reach the conclusion that there wasn't enough evidence to convict Anthony of murder. The trial, now history, but the outrage lives on. Then there were the tweets heard around the world, the protests in Egypt. This was just one of many uprisings in the Middle East fueled by social media. It led to the ouster of President Hosni Mubarak, but protests and demonstrations, which began in Egypt in January after a similar revolution in Tunisia, continue across the Arab world to this day. New this morning, a suspect is behind bars after a teen was left alone to die. Police arrested 18-year-old DeMontre Lovett at his home last night, charging him in the death of Carl Martin. Police say 15-year-old Martin was found lifeless in a van in St. Petersburg Thursday night. Now, according to the police report, the two men were driving around in a stolen van. That's when a loaded .40 caliber handgun accidentally went off in the back seat, shooting through the front seat and hitting Martin. As he began to lose consciousness, the group abandoned the van, thinking he was dead with the victim inside. It would be hours later before police would find the vehicle and the body of the 15-year-old. The suspect, who recently turned 18, has a long history with the law as a juvenile. Also new this morning, a blow to Newt Gingrich's bid for the White House. The Republican Party of Virginia announced earlier this morning that the former speaker did not receive enough signatures to appear in Virginia's primary ballot. Gingrich, as well as Texas Governor Rick Perry, failed to meet the state's strict standard for signature qualification. But Virginia voters on March 6th will see the names of two more popular options for the GOP nomination, Mitt Romney and Ron Paul, who each successfully qualified with more than 10,000 signatures each. The current president will be able to relax a bit this week after wrapping up a tense week in Washington. Barack Obama arrived in Hawaii late last night with a vacation for his family. He spends the holidays each year near his childhood home on Oahu, and this year he can celebrate a deal where Congress agreed to extend the payroll tax for 2 more months. That agreement, signed into law yesterday, will extend a tax break for 160 million Americans. The current legislation was set to expire on January 1st, and while House Republicans were pushing for a 1-year extension, fully paid for by cuts elsewhere, they compromised on a 2-month extension. The deal was finalized Friday in a remarkable session of the House and Senate, which had all but closed up shop for the holidays.
Well, 3 days notice, several hundred people here at City Hall Plaza. I think it goes without saying it's an emotional issue. Take a look behind me. We've got a number of rail supporters, people here who are upset with Governor Rick Scott for rejecting that federal money. This all came about through Linda Salcena, former city councilwoman for Tampa, getting the supporters together. But as we take a look around, we're going to go across Canada here, take a look at all the people on the other side. That is the local Tea Party and anti-rail supporters. They're here to thank Governor Scott and make sure their voices are heard too. And I got to be honest with you, right now, they're outnumbering the supporters who are here wanting high-speed rail. Now, as we talk about everything going on here in downtown Tampa today, simultaneously, the elected officials from Florida are getting together and working overtime to try and save this project. The clock is ticking. They have until Friday to show some progress in how they might be able to get a local municipality group with Tampa, Lakeland, and the cities of Orlando together to take the risk off of the state's plate.